way people do business is very much different. When I speak with people back in the States, we can always just get right down to it. Boom, we're getting to it. When it comes to Europe, we might have to, it's a bit more, oh, who are you? Who do you know? Type deal. But then if you go to further east, Middle East, Asia, even parts of Africa, very much, we want to get to know you as a person first. Are you someone we want to do business with?
What's one problem you would solve about the UK economy?
I think a lot of the issues of the UK just have to do with mindset. Say what you want about the culture of America. There's a go-getter attitude. I do think people feel like what they get is directly related to their output. I don't think that same mindset or feeling is had in the UK. What I'll see is in the UK, they'll say like, oh, we've done X, Y, and Z. You hit your milestones. Cool. Versus if we look at an American startup, this company said in 9 months, we have doubled our annual recurring revenue. They've quadrupled their enterprise clients, and they've doubled their ACV, their annual contract value, which means they have shown that not only can they land a contract, they can expand that contract as well and grow an account. And this is only in 9 months. This is what I see in America. When we started the venture fund, I ignored any AI deal I got for the first year, simply because I had this thought that like, wow, I'm just hearing about AI as an applicable software, and I am confident I don't know what's going on. And I'm also confident everyone else doesn't know what's going on as well. After so many iterations of OpenAI, I think I was kind of validated in that. We see a lot of value that was kind of washed out as the OpenAI 2.0, OpenAI 3.0, so on, so on, so. There's a lot of companies that I saw that they raised some great rounds, and they're like, oh, we're doing this X, Y, Z. And then OpenAI, oh, we're doing this for free now.
As a natural New Yorker, and now having lived in London, 4 years?
Yeah, 4 years.
Which is the better city? Hi, everyone. I'm Kay, and we're here with another episode of Cross Border, where we sit down with industry experts, entrepreneurs, and creators who are facilitating the global exchange of culture. Today, I'm here with Ken Thomas. Ken is a venture capitalist at Back Future Ventures. Ken, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Can you tell us how you landed here?
Yeah. From New York, right? So I started in retail banking, had this idea of democratization of financial services and financial literacy. Quickly realized HSBC is not the place for that. Go figure. So after 2 years of that, Better.com was like a mortgage fintech coming up in New York. Found out about that through a friend. The pandemic hit, so like many people, I had an inflection point. Am I doing what I'm really doing? Am I on the path to be doing that? Resounding no on many fronts, like many people had as well. So moved to London during the pandemic, did 2 masters consecutively, concurrently worked for 2 fintechs during that time. And the beginning of last year, the founder of SaaS Stock, he said, I want to start a VC fund. I think now's the time. I like your background, and would you want to start this with me? Never had a vision of being in venture capital, but I was like, sure, why not? And so we've been running this for about 1 year and 10 months now, as my LinkedIn says, as of the day of this shooting. We've so far, our target AUM, or assets under management, is 10 million. So very much a micro VC. We've raised 3 million so far, or did our first close of 3 million in June, with 12 deals done by the end of this year, which is 2024. Our first deal was done in September, so we're about 1 deal a month, basically, and that goes from everywhere from Brazil, US, here in UK now, UK and Ireland. We haven't hit the mainland Europe yet, but yeah, that's kind of what we do.
Well, that's good momentum for a year and how many months you said? 1 year and 10 months? That's
exactly that. Yep.
Wow, congratulations. What exactly is B2B SaaS? Can you give us a little background?
So B2B SaaS, B2B, business to business, SaaS is subscription as a service. You can really think about it in a lot of ways. I mean, basically anything you pay for on a monthly or annual basis. In reality, it's basically just a payment structure, right? It doesn't really dictate what type of product you're offering. It just really determines how is this product being paid for. So what you could think about it like, if you go to certain markets that might have been a more old school mindset with it, if I buy this, then I own this. Like, for instance, if you bought, Windows when they were first licensing their things, you bought the software and that was it. But if you're paying for something on software on a subscription service, basically what you're getting that guaranteed customer service, you're getting that guaranteed, updates, they're updating the software and things like that. So that's kind of the bit of a mindset why someone might pay for something on a ongoing basis versus just paying for it once, where, what you have is what you get. There's only there's limited follow up on that as well.
Okay, so essentially it's a subscription model for technology.
Effectively,
basically. Interesting. So, well, before we dive into the VC, we want to talk about your experience in London first. This is Cross Border. We talk about people who are living and working abroad. What was your first impressions when you landed in London? Did you have any culture shock?
No, not really at all. I mean, funny enough, like before I came to London because I wanted to go abroad again. During my undergrad, I spent a lot of time in Asia, so like Hong Kong, Tokyo, Japan. Well, obviously Japan. Everywhere from Korea, Singapore. So like I think that was as far as you can get. I mean, as an English-speaking nation here in the West, it wasn't really that much of a difference. Coming from New York, I think a big thing was the speed at which life is lived here. It's like I live in Zone 1. I live on Brick Lane. Shoreditch is fairly busy as far as London and UK goes, but I still feel it's very much a residential feel, I guess.
Really, but in Shoreditch feels residential.
Yeah, lack of seasoning as well. Depending where you go.
Let's not get started on the food. I think that's a whole nother episode. Yeah. How has living abroad shaped your outlook on life and business?
Yeah, opened my mind. Whoa, who would have thought? But I think it's very, very much in that way. Being able to work with different people, like while products might not be that different, right? From one continent to another, but the way people do business is very, very much different. When I speak with people back in the States, we can always just get right down to it. Boom, we're getting to it. Da 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 da. When it comes to Europe, we might have to, it's a bit more, playing around. There's who are you? Who do you know? Type deal. But then if you go to further east, Middle East, Asia, even parts of Africa, very much, we want to get to know you as a person first. Are you someone we want to do business with? If I were just in the U.S. or in New York doing this, would I have to worry about that? Maybe if we had business partners coming abroad, but unless I was going there, I would be looking for business. It would probably be a bit different. But I'd say, just having that open mind, understanding how other folks kind of work is probably the biggest difference that I've made with that, and being able to be palatable. Yes, right.
So would you say that kind of that New Yorker pace, that New Yorker edge, can oftentimes kind of backfire here sometimes? Would you say? No.
There's a bit maybe there's a bit of tokenism involved with it, and play the cards you dealt. When as a person of color, when I'm in these rooms, right, and I'll say like, where are you from? Like if someone's from mainland Europe, sure, whatever. It's a train ride away in a lot of cases. Or they, I'm from New York. I don't say I'm from America. I say I'm from New York, and that they hear the accent, they see that it's already a different conversation, right? So I'm already you're this person, and then you're also from this place doing this. Okay, there's something here that I might need to tie into. Like I was ran into a guy the other day at an event, and he's like some high government official in Africa, and he's like, oh yeah, we should have a coffee when you have time. And it's like, sure, but would we be having that coffee if I was some guy from the UK? Maybe, but I think there's that added benefit. But
so you're just suggesting that having that New York edge offers some type of advantage?
I think there's a huge benefit. I mean, I was in Hong Kong, and I'll tell them where you from. I could go anywhere in the world, and they'll be like, oh, where are you from? I'm from New York. I don't need to say what country. They know the city, right? And I think that goes beyond anything.
And now let's flip the script a little. When you're in New York, when you're in the U.S., is the opposite true?
In terms of what?
Saying, okay, I'm in, when you're in the U.S. and doing business, and you say, oh, where are you from? I'm a New Yorker, but I live in London. Does that carry, any sort of weight or advantages?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think
grass is always greener.
No, they'll say oh, cool, you live in London. I mean, you live abroad. I mean, there's always that aspect that people like. It's different, right? Now, if I was in New York working, and I was talking to someone from another state, maybe it would backfire there. I don't know, maybe. But I think outside of America, a lot of people do idolize New York because it's the movies, right? Mm-hmm. It's the flash, it's the lights, it's everything like that. And as cliche as it might sound, from my experience, people believe the movies. I mean, if you go, it might be a different story, but
yeah. So you were born in New York. You're a New Yorker.
No.
Spanish Harlem, is it?
Spanish Harlem, East Harlem. My grandmother, she moved from Puerto Rico. She was a seamstress in Flatiron Building for a lot of her career. Just grew up right outside the mosque on 97th and 2nd Street on East. I mean, people say like, oh, that's not really Harlem, but I'm like, well, that's when the projects start. So it is what it is. Yeah, my uncle, they grew up there. My dad's from Fort Greene, Brooklyn. And yeah, so every time I go back, I'm just going to very much not Shoreditch and Brick Lane. But I think it keeps you grounded, and it's good to kind of see where people are and bringing things back as well.
Right. So now, as a natural New Yorker, and now having lived in London, 4 years?
Yeah, 4 years.
Which is the better city?
New York, not even a question about it.
Not even a question.
So I was having some pints with my boss before this, and I was like, and his guys are all from the UK, fair enough, and they asked me like, oh, what do you like living out in London? I'm like, the Med. I mean, you have the access to the Mediterranean. I mean, like, dude, like, if you're telling me, I mean, dude, we were catching flights and it was 50 quid, 50 pounds round trip to go to like Greece. In America, where are you flying for $50? You could fly that Uber back home, like maybe, because even that might be not enough money to get home. No,
truly, between Manhattan and Brooklyn on a Saturday night, that Uber is $80 minimum.
Mm-hmm. It's nuts. And I mean, the accessibility you have in London is unparalleled, I guess. I mean, I would say for Singapore, you probably have the same thing, because Singapore, in my opinion, is the London of Southeast Asia. But, maybe for the grand scale of the North American continent, it's just very hard to get around as you would in Europe,
Interesting. So what's keeping you over here then?
Back Feature Ventures, baby. That's what it's all about. I mean, right now, I think I'm more interested in building a venture fund than being a VC, as backwards as it might sound. And to build a great venture fund, I have to be a great VC or venture capitalist. So, with that, I see myself as more of an ecosystem player. So, like as I mentioned, we've roughly done 1 deal a month. But how many people am I meeting on a monthly basis, right? How many people can I help? How many connections can I make? And I think, we're playing this game, if we want to call it a game. I don't like to say gambling, because my investors might not be too happy with that. But what we're doing is we're building relationships. We have this old adage, like, a venture partner is just like, what do you call it? Just like a marriage. It's going to last 7 to 10 years, which lasts longer than most marriages in the United States. But it is true. I mean, we are contractually liable to be dealing with each other until this company has a liquidity event. So, I look to be, by the nature of being here, I aim to be here for a long time, right? We do invest globally. So maybe once we increase our AUM, I might move to another market, as we might bring people on. But as of right now, my visa is till 2028, so we'll see what occurs there. But we've had some developments up home, so I might assess things a bit differently.
Speaking of 2028, we recently just elected a new president back home.
Yeah.
What was it like watching it all play out overseas?
Whether I agree with the guy or not is a different conversation altogether. But I kind of had a feeling. And you look at the demographics from an income earning perspective, and those earning under, I think it was like 50 or 55,000 a year. He basically flipped it. Before that, the Democrats had the working class, as we were to put it, were pretty much owned by the Democrats as a voting bloc. Donald Trump completely changed that. But what Kamala Harris had was the voting bloc of those making over 100 grand, or the quote unquote elites. And then you look at whichever news organization you watch, you're like, oh, she won a flawless campaign. And clearly she didn't, because she lost. If it was a flawless campaign, she would have won.
What are the implications of a Trump presidency? How do you see it impacting the UK?
Speaking about venture capital specifically, I would say Donald Trump might be better for venture space. Not saying I would vote for him simply on that note. We look at the Federal Trade Commission, Lena Khan, right? She's blocked a lot of stuff in the M&A space, and a lot of these IPOs or any liquidity events that might occur, what the venture space needs to furthermore get people to invest in us again. Would Kamala Harris have gotten rid of Lena Khan? Probably. So, I mean, we have the same outcome? I think so. But what we see from public equities and the public market is that this is a very business-friendly president we have now. So, I mean, but again, we talk about the working class versus the elites, right? Does the working class have a portfolio that's appropriately diversified? I don't know. But I also know that if I were to go back home and I speak to, family and friends in El Barrio, they're not talking about their portfolio positions, right?
So, as a venture capitalist, you're in the business of solving problems. What's one problem you would solve about the UK economy?
The UK economy. I don't even know if this is a tech thing, right? But I think more maybe a mindset. I think a lot of the issues of the UK just have to do with mindset. Great people, don't get me wrong, lovely people. I think there's a bit of a mindset issue in terms of work. I mean, say what you want about the culture of America in terms of tipping culture, but I think that's also brought on by individuals that there's a go-getter attitude. Like, I think our country's so young that we're able to just do things, and we have this vision. Like, the American dream, whether we believe it's still alive or not, is a different conversation. But I do think people feel like what they get is directly related to their output. I don't think that same mindset or feeling is had in the UK.
I would agree with that. One of my key observations, and I wasn't able to, I guess, verbalize it until like I think a couple of years living in London. But I think it seems to me that in the US, you're oftentimes starting from a yes, even especially in a place like New York, right? People are eager to connect, eager to collaborate, eager to connect you with this person. Whereas in London, or in the UK, you're oftentimes starting from a no.
Yeah.
Like, let me give you all the reasons why this isn't going to work, or, think like maybe, or, we'll think about it. Whereas that curiosity to connect, that curiosity to connect with others is inherently a New York mindset.
Yeah. Well, I think it's more just an American mindset for what it's worth. I think the conservatism that we see in UK and Europe largely has to do with the age of these countries, right? America's 200 some odd years old. We still have that vision. We could be anything we want, right? As a country, we tell kids, you can be whatever you want.
As evidenced by the President of the United States, as bitter a pill it is to swallow. Part of America is just appreciating that, whether you're the child of an immigrant born in the U.S. or the child of a billionaire, with a silver spoon, golden spoon in your mouth, you can both ascend to run for the highest office in the country.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's the silver lining that I would like to take from this. But I guess speaking about that mindset, right? US UK mindset. How do those differences impact how you make investments at Back Future?
What we look at first is a great team. Is there a great team? Right. That's a different conversation. The conversation can continue or stop just at that piece alone. What I'll see is in the UK or Europe, they'll say like, oh, we've done X, Y, and Z. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, well, we're at month 12, which is, when you should start fundraising again. And I'm seeing that you hit your milestones. Cool. That's not exactly like stellar, but like, cool, you've done what you said. But okay, what's the story here? Like, why should I care? Versus if we look at an American startup, they're doing it, whether you're on board or not. Like, there was a deal, probably one of the quickest processes we ran. This company said, in 9 months, we have doubled our annual recurring revenue, and there's a 6-figure to 6-figure. So like, this isn't like 5 to 10K. This is a very significant jump. They've quadrupled their enterprise clients, which means that enterprise sales can go anywhere from 6 to 18 months in terms of sales cycle and procurement. So that's like, they're moving very rapidly, and they've doubled their ACV, their annual contract value, which means they have shown that not only can they land a contract, they can expand that contract as well and grow an account. And this is only in 9 months, right? This is what I see in America. I mean, these things surely happen in Europe, but I see them more often over there.
And as far as being a Black man in the venture capital space, do you experience similar challenges that you would in the U.S.?
I think, for a Black Brit in the U.S., I probably may say the same thing, right? I'm doing all right here in the U.S. I think in the UK, I think there's a bit of tokenism, right? I'm sure there is. I think people want to speak to me because I'm like, they know me as the New Yorker, the American. You know, whether there's a color associated with that is a different conversation. But or
But
maybe
you
just,
lean into it, as you just said. Yeah.
man, I
The
mean,
American bit. The American
listen,
bit.
it was Jamie Foxx and Denzel Washington on the couch talking about like, I'm leaving with something. So I mean, like, dude, honestly, you know, people are gonna have their misconceptions or their conceptions. People are gonna have their thoughts, their ideas. But at the end of the day, as long as we're not crashing out, yeah, I'm leaving with something.
I like that. I like that mentality. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what trends in the SaaS space are you excited about looking ahead? Is it AI? Is AI a thing? You know, in
AI.
SaaS, everyone's talking about AI.
AI. Yeah, I mean, of
Just
course.
slap AI on the website.
Yeah, no, everything's AI, man. I know when we started the venture fund, I ignored any AI deal I got for the first year simply because I had this thought that like, wow, I'm just hearing about AI as an applicable software, and I am confident I don't know what's going on. And I'm also confident everyone else doesn't know what's going on as well. After so many iterations of AI, of OpenAI, we see Claude, we see Grok. I think I was kind of validated in that. We see a lot of value that was kind of washed out as the OpenAI 2.0, OpenAI 3.0, so on, so on, so. There's a lot of companies that I saw that they raised some great rounds, and they're like, you know, like, oh, we're doing this XYZ, and then OpenAI, oh, we're doing this for free now. Oh, so I mean, I think now we've done some AI deals or AI adjacent deals, I guess, and what that means is we'll have a company that the core product is not AI, which is fine. But the core product is something else. But they are AI enabled. And like, you know, I think a lot of people that have this idea that AI is going to replace, you know, workers, right? Whatever. Maybe knowledge workers, sure. But I don't think we're going to see it in the way that people are imagining it right now. What AI is really going to do is going to 8x, 10x, 12x an employee. So everyone's more productive, reducing those manual tasks, reducing those menial tasks, and really getting to the core of what knowledge work actually means, right? And I think that's kind of where I see it. So, what as we would call it in the space, application layer is where we would kind of look at things or AI enabled type stuff. In terms of anything that's like core AI, you look at Mistral, which raised crazy rounds or anything like that. We wouldn't do that. And the big thing is I probably would stay away from that because the amount of money that they raise is just insane. So if one of those founders is talking to me, my money's not worth your time because I don't write checks that big. You know, we write 6-figure checks. And I know the check I have is not worth your money. It's not worth your time. So.
And what about, you know, we've seen a huge rally in, you know, the cryptocurrencies and since the election of Donald Trump. Are cryptocurrencies, decentralized finance, is that relevant or adjacent to the industries that you're looking in, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I do see AI to be similar to that that was generally Web3 hype we had so many years ago. You saw crazy fundraisings of companies that they had they had blockchain crypto or something like that in the name.
DeFi.
Yeah, exactly. So, but for crypto specifically, I think there's a lot of companies now that aren't raising on that, like the blockchain and everything. I think there's inherent value in these softwares. I think that's not, someone's not going to buy a software or product because it's blockchain, because it's Web3 or it's AI. No one cares. What does it mean for the end customer? Like, what does it actually mean for how you're changing? Are they saving time? Are they getting more money? What does it mean? They don't care how it's being done, right? But in terms of the rallies that we're seeing in the cryptocurrency markets, I think a lot of that is due to, you know, sentiments that people just don't believe in the system anymore, and like it's kind of shown. I mean, we talk about what does it mean for a Donald Trump presidency. I mean, like whether you agree with like 2025 or you believe in it or the policies. What I can tell you is that the Supreme Court of the United States of America will be more partisan and will be more right leaning as we have justices like, you know, Gorsuch, you know, Clarence Thomas stepping down and being put in with someone that's 30, 40 years old that's going to be there in that position for probably a better part of our lives. You know, and you look at all the scandals they had in SCOTUS as well. it all ties into people don't believe in the system. People are really not believing in the fiat currencies anymore. They believe in the store of value that Bitcoin is. I mean, there's three things that would label something as a currency by definition. Fiat it's not scarce anymore. It's not backed by anything scarce anymore. I mean, Bitcoin, there's a finite amount of Bitcoins that can be minted.
So a couple of last questions just to wrap things up. As far as, the practical elements of moving abroad, the visa, how did you do it?
You'd be surprised how accessible countries are via visa now. There's a lot of countries out there that if you have a certain amount of money in your bank account, and you can prove that if you have a certain amount of income that you can make there without having to move there, there's a lot of opportunities out there for that kind of thing. I think the skilled worker is a vestige of like a very old style of doing it. I think now these days, as a lot of countries move to the right politically, it's going to be very hard. It's going to be more harder for them to kind of do any skilled worker visas because you have to prove that there's no one inside the country that could do the work that they're hiring for. But if you're working for yourself or you're able to work remote and you want to go to another country, say you make X amount, that's definitely a viable option for you. And there's a lot of countries, the golden visa thing. I mean, I'm not going to delve too much into that, but if you have X amount of money in your account, you can get, maybe a 6-month or 12-month visa to be in that country. And, what you do with your time there is up to you. Maybe you find a way to stay longer.
All right. And lastly, I suppose, you said you're in Shoreditch, East London. Now, of all the neighborhoods in London, South London, East, not neighborhoods, but all the regions, you're an East London guy? Is East London the best?
I'm an East London guy. West London's very inaccessible. Aesthetically pleasing. I think there's a lot more to be left around. I find East to be a bit more rough around the edges. I like that. It's not as aesthetically pleasing as the West, but there's way more going on in my opinion. And it's way more accessible.
Yeah. It's a bit more Brooklyn vibes, I would say.
Yeah, you can say that. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Ken, thanks for stopping by. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you didn't say anything too...
Not too inflammatory.
Yeah, exactly. But thank you all for tuning into another episode of Cross Border. Be sure to give us a like and follow along and tune in for the next episode. It's been a pleasure having Ken here, and check him out on LinkedIn should you have a business idea you want to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, maybe... Yeah, if you're in a B2B SaaS place looking to do business software, or just maybe want to say what does it mean to be a venture-backed company, which most companies are not venture-backable, happy to talk about it.
Excellent. Thanks all.